your Lomo MC-A is jamming, misfocusing, or just plain confusing you, this is your complete guide. I make instant and film photography simple for beginners, and I'll take you step by step through this camera. First, I'll walk you through the entire camera body so you know what every button and dial does. Then, I'll show you how to load film without ruining a roll, how to choose the right focus and shooting modes, and finally, some fun creative tricks like multiple exposures and long exposures. There are timestamps in the description so you can jump straight to whatever you need. In the box, you get a lot of stuff. The camera, a rechargeable CR2 battery, a strap, a split-stir lens attachment, and colored flash shells, just to name a few. I'll put everything you find in your box on screen so you can pause and check your kit. Let's move on to the camera body. One thing I really like about this camera is that the body is made up of metal pieces. Looking at the front, starting from the top left corner, you see the Lomo MC-A logo. To the right of the logo, you will see a self-timer LED indicator. The LED will flash red when counting down. I'll go over the details of the self-timer a little bit later. To the right of the self-timer LED indicator is a distance meter window and a viewfinder. Inside the viewfinder, you will find the autofocus indicator light and slow shutter speed indicator light. When using your autofocus mode, make sure the distance meter window is not blocked. When you look through the viewfinder, you should see a circle-like icon in the middle and frames around the edge. When in autofocus mode, the autofocus indicator light will light up blue when the focus is set. If the autofocus indicator light is blinking, then you may be too close to your subject. The slow shutter speed indicator light will light up orange when the shutter speed is slower than 1/30th of a second. In the far right upper corner of the front is a built-in flash and colored gel flash filter holder. The flash has an effective range of up to 13 feet at ISO 400 and f2.8. I'll post the flash distance chart on the screen. By default, the flash is off every time you turn the camera on. If you want to use the colored gel flash filters, slide in your colored gel filter of choice. It is recommended to only use one colored gel filter at a time, otherwise they may get stuck. Below the self-timer LED indicator is the zone focusing lever. You use this lever when you're in a manual focus mode. There are 5 focusing zones from about 1.3 feet to infinity. To the right of the zone focusing lever is the lens. The multi-coated glass lens has a focal length of 32 mm and composed of 5 elements. It has an aperture range of f2.8 to f16 and a 70-degree angle of view. The lens is retracted into the camera body when the camera is off. When you turn the camera on, the lens protrudes, which allows you to access the aperture ring. On the aperture ring, you will see the different aperture options listed, p and f2.8 through f16. Rotate the aperture ring to choose the aperture you want. On the right side of the camera body, you have the camera strap holder, and below that, the backdoor lock release. You turn the backdoor lock release clockwise to open the back of your camera. On the left side of the camera, you have the other camera strap holder, and below that, the PC Sync flash connection socket. This socket allows you to connect an external flash to your MC-A. In order to use it, connect a PC Sync cable with the PC Sync socket. The external flash should automatically fire each time you release the shutter button, even if the built-in flash is turned off. You may be able to still control the front or rear curtain flash sync by choosing different flash modes. Let's check the back of the camera. Starting from the top left, you have the viewfinder. To the right of the viewfinder, you have the film advancing lever. This is how you move the film to the next frame. Below the viewfinder and film advance lever is the camera door. On the left-hand side of the camera door is a little window that lets you see the film type and exposure so you know what you're shooting with. When you open the camera door, starting from the left, you will see the film chamber. This is where you will place your film canister. A little further right, you will see the sprocket wheel and film taking spool. These 2 pieces essentially snag your film so that it is properly fed through your camera while you take photos. I'll show you how to load film a little bit later. On the top of the camera, starting top left, you have the lomography logo. Below the logo is the LCD main display. The LCD screen will show you things like battery level, focusing mode, exposure compensation, whether the flash is on or off, etc. Underneath the LCD screen, from the left to the right, you have the flash mode button, the self-timer button, and the ISO button. The flash mode button lets you cycle through the 4 flash modes: off, auto, creative flash mode 1, and creative flash mode 2. The off mode just means the flash won't go off. The auto flash automatically fires when you release the shutter. This is used for front curtain flash sync. A nugget to keep for later: if you're in program or aperture priority auto exposure mode, the slowest shutter speed you can use with auto flash is 1/30th of a second. Creative flash mode 1 also uses front curtain sync. The difference between this mode and auto is that when you shoot in program or aperture priority auto exposure, there is no limit on the slowest shutter speed. Creative Flash Mode 2 uses rear curtain sync. Like with Creative Flash Mode 1, there is no limit to the slowest shutter speed when shooting in program or aperture priority auto exposure. The LCD screen will display one of the 4 flash icons on the screen so you will know what you selected. To the right of the Flash Mode button is the self-timer button. There are 3 self-timer options: 2 seconds, 10 seconds, or 30 seconds. For 2 seconds, the self-timer indicator light will rapidly blink until the shutter fires. For 10 and 30 seconds, the self-timer light will blink once every 0.5 seconds and then rapidly blink during the last 3 seconds before the shutter fires. To the right of the self-timer button is the ISO button. The Lomo MC-A can use both DX-coded and non-DX-coded film. DX-coded film is the one that allows the camera to automatically detect and set the correct ISO according to the DX code. Non-DX-coded film requires you to manually set the ISO. If you want to manually set the ISO, simply press the ISO button to cycle through your options. The Lomo MC-A supports ISO 12 to 3200. Something to remember, the ISO will automatically default to ISO 100 every time you open the camera door or the battery is removed. The selected ISO will be displayed on the LCD screen. In the middle of the top of the camera is the saying. Yes, the saying is a bit cheesy, but I like it. To the right of the saying is the on and off switch. You should see a little red line on the switch. If the red line is pointed at the red dot, that means the camera is off. If you want to turn the camera on, move the switch until the red line either points at autofocus or manual focus. Autofocus mode is where the camera automatically selects the focus point. Manual focus is when you select the focus range you want your camera to use. On top of the on and off switch is a shutter button. You half press the shutter button to focus on your subject, and then you fully press down on the shutter button to take a photo. To the right and below the on and off switch is the shutter speed dial. There is an auto shutter speed mode which allows the camera to pick the shutter speed for you. There's a bulb mode which allows the shutter to stay open for up to 20 seconds as long as you hold the shutter button down. A couple of things about bulb mode. The P aperture setting is disabled and it will default to f2.8 if you don't choose a different aperture. Also, it is recommended to allow at least 10 seconds in between bulb exposures to prevent your camera from overheating. The remaining shutter speeds are from 1 second to 1/500th of a second. Your chosen shutter speed will be displayed on the LCD screen. Bulb mode can be good for low light or night situations where you need a longer exposure. To the right of the shutter speed dial is the exposure compensation dial. The exposure compensation range is from -2 to +2 and is broken up into half stops. You use the plus EV number if you want to brighten your image, and the negative EV number if you want to darken your image. If you are using exposure compensation, you should see a plus or minus sign on your LCD screen. Above the exposure compensation dial is the multiple exposure button. There is no limit to the amount of layers you can take for multiple exposure shots. Stay tuned for the creative use section of this video to learn how to use it and other creative features of this camera. Finally, let's check out the bottom of the camera. From the top left, you have the battery cap. You can use a small coin or a flathead screwdriver to loosen the door. This camera takes a CR2 battery. Below the battery cap is a standard tripod mount. To the right of the tripod mount is the rewind release button. You press this button when you're ready to rewind your film back into the canister before you remove it from the camera. To the right of the rewind release button is the film rewind lever. Okay, you're ready to start using your camera, but first you need to charge the included rechargeable CR2 battery. You will need a USB-C cable and a power source. It is recommended that your power source go no higher than 5 volts or you may damage your rechargeable battery. Plug the USB-C cable and power source into the battery and let it charge. There is a charging light indicator on the battery. If the light is red, that means the battery is charging. Once it turns green, that means the battery is full. Depending on your camera settings, the battery can last for up to 10 rolls of film and be recharged over 1,200 times. Once you have finished charging the battery, unscrew the battery cap at the bottom of the camera and insert the battery with the positive end pointing up towards the battery cap. After the battery is inserted, screw the battery cap back on. Now you're ready to load film into your camera. This next section is important. I'm going to show you how to load film into your camera. If you get this wrong, you can shoot an entire roll of film and get nothing, so take your time here. The first thing you want to do is to make sure you have a battery in your camera. If you don't, the film advance lever won't work and you won't be able to properly load film into your camera. Take your film of choice out of its packaging and open the film door. In order to open the door, twist the back door lock release switch clockwise to the direction of the arrow. The film door should pop open. Put your film into the film chamber. Alright, one thing of note when putting film into this camera is you'll see a little protruding piece here, And then you see the film canister has a protruding piece as well. So you want to put the protruding piece in first, kind of on top of each other, so the film slides right in. And then thread the end of your film through the film taking spool. I cannot emphasize this enough. You want to make sure the perforations align with the sprocket wheel before you close the film door. From there, you turn the camera on and the LCD screen should show a frame count of -1. You need to crank the film advance lever to reach a frame count of 0, and then you should be able to start snapping away. Turning on the camera is very straightforward. Like I mentioned earlier, turn the on and off switch so that the red line is either pointing at autofocus or manual focus. The camera lens should extend and the LCD screen will turn on. Among other things, you should see a battery icon letting you know how much power the battery has left. Thing of note, if you leave the camera idle for 2 minutes, it will go into sleep mode. This means the LCD screen will turn off. Press any button and the camera will wake up and be ready to use. Autofocus mode is where the camera automatically sets focus. As previously mentioned, the camera can focus between 1.3 feet and infinity. In order to use autofocus mode, do the following. Turn the camera on to autofocus. To the viewfinder and place the subject you want the camera to focus on in the circle you see through the viewfinder. Half press the shutter button so the camera focuses on the subject. If you want the camera to refocus, release the shutter button and repeat steps 2 and 3. When you're happy with the focus, fully press the shutter button. Autofocus mode is great for everyday use, portraits, travel, or when you're out and about and you don't want to have to worry about messing with settings. Reminder, if the autofocus indicator light lights up blue, then the focus is set. If the light is blinking, you may be too close to your subject. Manual focus is where you choose the focusing area. In order to use manual focus, do the following. Turn the camera on to manual focus. Select the focus zone you want and move the zone focusing lever to that zone. Press the shutter button halfway and the camera will focus to that zone. While holding the shutter button halfway down, compose your shot. Press the shutter button all the way when you're ready to take a photo. Tip: if you're shooting through glass, consider using manual focus and placing the focusing distance at infinity. This should allow the camera to focus past the glass and to the subject on the other side of it. You should also consider using manual focus if you're shooting low contrast subjects or scenarios where your autofocus is struggling. A couple of things to consider for both modes. The focus will remain locked as long as you are half pressing the shutter button. The focus distance will be shown on the LCD screen. If you're shooting between 1.3 feet and 2.6 feet, use the parallax corrected frame in the viewfinder. If you are using non-DX coded film or you want to select your ISO, press the ISO button until you select the ISO you want for your photo. If you want to start shooting right away, you could simply set your camera to full program auto exposure mode. Think of this as your point and shoot mode. Here, the MC-A automatically sets the shutter speed and aperture. To do this, make sure you are in autofocus mode. Then, set the aperture ring to P and the shutter speed dial to A. This mode is great if you're new to film photography or to this camera, or in a situation where you need to shoot fast or you don't want to worry about settings, like when you're traveling. There is Aperture Priority Auto Exposure mode, which allows you to set the aperture and the camera to set the shutter speed. To set this mode, again, make sure your camera is in autofocus mode. Then set your shutter speed dial to A and set your aperture ring between f.28 and f16. A good thing to know, when in this mode, if your aperture is set to f2.8, the max shutter speed that can be used is 1/250th of a second instead of 1/500th of a second. This mode is useful when you want to control bokeh, aka that background blur, or your depth of field. The last mode is the manual exposure mode. With this mode, you can set both the shutter speed and the aperture. You turn the shutter speed dial and the aperture ring to whatever setting you want. You may want to use this manual exposure mode if you're dealing with trickier lighting situations or you want more creative control over your image. Okay, so at this point, you should be ready to take your first photo. You should have a charged camera battery inserted into your camera settings should be set, and a shooting mode should have been chosen. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about because you just jumped here, go to the timestamps to find out about all those things. Taking a photo is pretty easy. With the lens pointing towards your subject, look through the viewfinder and place the subject you want in focus within the circle of the viewfinder. Go ahead and half press the shutter button to focus and meter your camera. Keep half pressing the shutter button and make any composition changes you want. When you're ready and happy with everything, fully press and release the shutter button. If you're not doing a multiple exposure shot, go ahead and fully crank the film advance lever to move towards the next film frame. If you don't fully crank the film advance lever, you may end up with overlapping frames. This means that the photo from one frame will overlap with the photo from the next frame. Make sure you let the shutter button fully release before you crank the film advance lever. If you don't, the film advance lever may jam. If that happens, you can try the following steps. Attach the lens cap. Set the aperture ring to any aperture between f2.8 and f16. Press the multiple exposure button and fully press and release the shutter button once. This should release the jam film advance lever. So you've used all the exposures for your roll of film and you're ready to take it out of the camera so it can be processed. You'll know you're done with your roll of film when you either see the last exposure indicated on the LCD screen or when the film advance lever stops midway through a crank. Here's what to do to remove the film. Press the rewind release button. Flip out the film rewind lever. Turn the rewind lever counterclockwise until you no longer run into any resistance. This means the film is back in the canister. There is an arrow indicator that also shows you which direction to turn the lever. Open the camera film door and remove the film canister. Alright, let's talk about some of the creative ways you can use your camera. Like previously mentioned, you can do multiple exposure shots with this camera. In order to use multiple exposure, you do the following steps. Take your first shot as normal, but don't use the film advance lever. Press the multiple exposure button and you should see an MX indicator on the LCD screen. Take your next shot. Repeat steps 2 and 3 as needed. When you're done, use the film advance lever to move to the next frame. Tip for shooting multiple exposure shots. Shoot underexposed. You are letting more and more light onto a single film frame each time you add an exposure. If you start out at a normal exposure, you may end up with a blown out final product. To shoot long exposure photos, you need to use bulb mode so that the shutter stays open for up to 20 seconds. Long exposures can be great for night scenes and capturing light trails. In order to use long exposure, you need to do the following. Set the shutter speed dial to B for bulb. Choose your aperture via the aperture ring. Half press the shutter button to focus. Fully press and hold the shutter button to open the shutter. The shutter will stay open as long as you are holding down the shutter button, again for up to 20 seconds. You should see a count up on the LCD screen. Once you're happy with the time length, go ahead and release the shutter button. Tip for shooting long exposures. Place your camera on a tripod or flat surface to help avoid as much camera shake as possible. Also, try starting at f8 and around 2 seconds for light trails. Let's talk about the splitzer lens attachment. This is a lens attachment that allows you to split a frame, aka capture 2 halves of a scene in one frame. In order to use the splitzer attachment, you need to do the following. Make sure the camera is off and the camera lens is retracted. Make sure the UV lens filter is not attached. Screw on the splitzer lens attachment to the lens. Move the dividing line how you want. Choose your focus and exposure mode. It works for every mode. Use your viewfinder to compose your shot while keeping in mind where your dividing line sits from the splitzer lens attachment. Half press the shutter button to focus and meter. Fully press and release the shutter button to take the photo. Press the multiple exposure button and then repeat steps 6 through 8 as many times as you need. Once you're finished composing your splitzer shot, fully crank your film advance lever to move to the next film frame. Try one half as a silhouette and the other half as a bright texture, or combine 2 different locations on one frame. Alright, I've been talking for a good bit now. If you stuck with me until the end, you're the real MVP. In this video, we've gone over the different parts and features of this camera, how to load the camera, take a photo, remove a full film canister, and more. What's the most confusing part of the Lomo MC-A for you right now? Loading film, focusing, or getting the exposure right? Let me know in the comments so I can help out. If you want more instant and film photography content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to receive notifications of when I post new videos. Until next time, keep practicing, keep having fun, and I'll see you in the next video.